Welcome to GetREAL. This is our opportunity for high school students to explore university and career options with an ISKL alumni working or studying around the world. It's our students' opportunity to learn about university, work life, and to ask the important questions in a small group setting. Today we have Amierul Aqil Khairi, who will share his university experiences at the University of Washington. Aqil attended ISKL for part of elementary school and then came back as a high school student. He graduated in 2015. He's from Malaysia, but he definitely considers himself to be a TCK, having spent the majority of his life living outside of his home country. Aqil is attending the University of Washington in the USA, where he's pursuing a PhD in Aeronautical and Astronautical engineering. He will be speaking today about studying engineering, undergraduate programs in STEM, and how they can lead to further pathways in higher education. So with that, I would like to welcome Aqil to take over.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kendra, Heather, and all those attending. So yeah, my name is Aqil, and I'll kind of hopefully briefly go through all these slides. I have a lot of pictures, so hopefully not too much text, and hopefully there'll be a lot of opportunity for questions either now or later, and I'm always happy to answer anything from the students later on after this presentation as well. So let's get right into it. So yeah, this is me, I guess, at my graduation. We actually had our graduation ceremony at the local aerospace museum, so at the Museum of Flight in Seattle. So that was a very, very nice way to cap off my 4 years of undergrad. So I'll do a brief introduction, talk about some of my time at ISKL, so what I did during my undergrad at the University of Washington, and I'll kind of cover the 4-year engineering degree timeline in the way that I did it. Also a little bit on living in Seattle and probably in the US as a whole and in general. A few notes on just life after high school and things I've learned and found out and would just like to share to those of you as just finishing up high school. So yeah, I've been at the UW for quite a while now. After graduating ISKL in 2015, the next fall I enrolled and started at UW, and then 4 years later graduated with my bachelor's degree in the Aero and Astro department. Then stayed on to complete my master's in 2021, and then after that still stayed on again, and now I'm in the PhD program in the same department. And so why, I guess very briefly, why I chose UW, because I know especially for seniors at this stage in high school, a lot of thought and time is being kind of spent on choosing university and where you want to go and making that decision. I guess for me, I knew that I wanted to do aerospace engineering. I'd applied to probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 schools in the US for aerospace, and I guess once the decisions came out, it kind of came down to only 2 to 3 schools. UW in Seattle was one, another one was Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and I kind of I was considering kind of the big city of Seattle versus Champaign, more of a college town, and I knew also that just the area in general in Seattle was a very kind of vibrant, well-developed hub, technological hub, and especially for aerospace. And that's probably one of the main factors that ended up in me moving to Seattle. So in my time at ISKL, these couple of pictures are mostly from high school. I was in the IB program, physics, chem, math, HLs. I did Lang and Lit, Spanish, and business for my SLs. So that definitely, I guess I was already kind of set on that STEM path from my IB days. And I would say that taking those 3 classes HL in high school definitely helped prepare me for the first couple of years of undergrad, especially in the US, where you kind of you don't always transfer all the credits, and you do end up kind of redoing some things. So it was nice to see some familiar concepts and to get some time to review those again and strengthen those kind of fundamentals. I did play for a couple of years in varsity soccer. So this is our team photo from IASIS in fall 2014 when we hosted it at the Ampang campus. I was also involved in a few different clubs: Earth Club, Habitat for Humanity, the Malaysian Cultural Club. Also had or spent that time performing at, I think it was 1 or 2 Battle of the Bands. So this is, I think, earlier on in high school, maybe my freshman or sophomore year. So yeah, a variety of different things, and it was a fun time. And a lot of these hobbies I kind of still continue to this day. I see also that maybe 1 or 2 have just joined, so feel free to stop me at any point if you want to ask a question about any of these photos. So we can just try to keep this pretty informal. So here's just a selection of photos from my time in undergrad. So I spent a lot of time, probably 3 of my 4 years in undergrad working in a student engineering group. So we were called the Society for Advanced Rocket Propulsion, completely student-led. I started in my sophomore year. So this picture on the left here, let me bring my laser pointer. So this picture on the left here, so this is us out in the desert of New Mexico. So there's a tournament called the Spaceport America Cup, where student teams from universities around the world compete to launch their rockets up to 10,000 and 30,000 feet. This is the first year that I was in the team. I think I'm here in the bottom left. This is the rocket that we built. And that was my first time kind of heading down there with the team and being part of that whole 3-4 days of setting up out in the desert, figuring out how to launch this thing and navigating the logistics and part of that project. So that was a really, really interesting time, made some good friends. So that was my sophomore year, and I kind of continued in that club through my junior and senior years. This top right picture is from senior year. So we went back, this is in 2019. That's me kind of putting together kind of final assembly of the combustion chamber on the rocket. So I kind of worked on beneath this carbon fiber bit. I'd worked on kind of the main engine of the rocket. And as it turned out, I see, I'll quickly answer this question. Yeah, so the working on the rockets was a separate project. So this was completely extracurricular. For the most part, I guess we were able to include this team as part of our senior year capstone project. So it did kind of contribute to academic degree requirements as well. But that's not always the case, but certainly this was after, this was in addition to coursework in the aerospace degree here. But in 2019, it turned out that we ended up winning not only our category prize, so that's this 30,000 foot trophy here, but we did end up winning the overall competition. So for University of Washington, we're the overall champions in 2019 for the Spaceport America Cup, and it was really a great honor to be part of that achievement, and also just kind of as a culmination of the 3 years of work that I'd been a part of. And in addition, it helped to, I guess that helped to bring about some new opportunities for me as well, which I can talk about as we move along. I guess one other thing that I did, or that I was a part of in undergrad, was kind of student leadership. So this West Coast Council is actually a part of a larger organization of Malaysian students in America. So this is kind of cross universities across the entire country. So I ended up being elected as the president for the West Coast kind of arm of this organization. So covering the entire West Coast into some of the mountain states like Montana, Utah, Nevada. And I served for a year. We kind of did a lot of networking programs, kind of orienting new Malaysian students that were coming to the US and providing support and communication between all these different universities, especially with, we worked a lot with the Malaysian embassy as well. In the bottom right here, this is actually where I'm working, the lab that I'm continuing my research in the PhD now. At this time, this photo was taken, I was in undergrad. We were, I guess this is a fellow student in that lab that I'd worked with on a paper. So at the same time as taking courses and doing this extracurricular project for, I guess, building rockets, by, I guess, my junior and senior year, I had started doing undergraduate research as well. So that was in this lab, and slightly, so not quite on building or rocket engineering, but kind of getting more into plasma physics and it's a nuclear fusion lab. So I started doing that my junior and senior year, and that's kind of where I transitioned as I moved into graduate school. Let's see, yeah, a couple more pictures. This was our this is us on stage receiving the trophies in 2019. Very fun moment, and then various images of this is kind of the propulsion system of the rocket laid out on campus as we were finally putting things together and packing things up. And this is an image from one of our static tests where we're testing out the engine, holding it down so it doesn't go anywhere, but just making sure that all of those subsystems worked. So I guess in kind of the context of pursuing an engineering degree at a large research university such as the University of Washington, there's a huge number of these types of clubs that are available for you to just join as a student, as an undergrad. In addition to kind of our club, Rocket Engineering, there were clubs that built a Formula race car, a superbike club, another club called Design Build Fly. They engineered a remote control aircraft for a competition, concrete canoe. If you're familiar with Elon Musk, he had a Hyperloop kind of underground high-speed train transportation idea a while back. There was a club that was dedicated to building a concept for that. CubeSats, various robotics clubs. So a lot of these kind of opportunities that are fairly mature. They've been around for quite a while and are always needing more and more students. So I guess as you enter I guess the undergraduate world, try and seek out and be aware of these opportunities. A lot of departments will send out notices and emails and about their kind of intakes, and a lot of them are fairly informal, and they can range from full. Some of them will have interviews, some of them will kind of just let you join on and maybe shadow someone, and you get to spend some time working on a particular part of the project, and plenty of opportunities to grow into leadership positions as well with these. And I have to say I'd say the majority of this team now, we were all in the aerospace department as well, but the kinds of companies that my colleagues here now work for range from SpaceX, Blue Origin, Boeing, Aerojet Rocketdyne. So definitely the large companies that kind of everyone hears about, and they probably got a good portion of why they did end up in those positions probably came from this club and kind of the experience that they earned and picked up by the few years of building these types of things just on campus. I'll address a couple of the questions here real quickly. So how's the undergraduate experience compared with the high school experience? How does your undergraduate experience differ from now pursuing a doctorate? Who should pursue a doctorate? So I'd say for comparing undergrad to high school, I think one big difference is definitely the amount of freedom that you now have. You're not spending as much time in class, I would say, and oftentimes I think I found myself only taking 2 to 3 classes every term. I think the UW's also on a quarter system, not a semester, but I think the amount of time spent in class was less. Lectures were 50 minutes, some were a couple hours, but you do spend a lot of time self-learning and kind of learning these skills of how to really manage your time a lot better, because now you're kind of living on your own. You have different responsibilities, I'd say, as to when you're living in high school, and probably living at home, there are other things that kind of constrain your time. So I did spend a large portion of time on homework, especially in the engineering degree. The jumps, I'd say, from where a professor will kind of introduce a concept in class and kind of move on to the next thing, and then you get a homework problem on it. The jump from, I guess, seeing it that first time to actually applying it in the homework question can be fairly large at times, and it takes some amount of time as well as collaboration with your kind of the students in your class to try and figure out how to really apply that concept that you just learned. So it's really important, I guess, to kind of know the fundamentals of what the question is asking, especially in engineering. But I think one of the main shocks for me was really just how much time I had to put into it, because things get very complicated very quickly in terms of the course content, I would say. But in general, though, everyone else is also going through that same experience. You will, or you may see, I guess for me at least, a decrease in the kind of the grades that I would get in high school versus college. I think that was quite a shock. But it's important to remember, I guess most classes are curved, and even though the average to a midterm might be something like 50 to 60%, which I saw plenty of times, that would probably still get you a pretty decent grade, because it all depends on how everyone else did as well. And more often than not, that was still a very strong score relative to, I guess, the entire class. So it can be a shock, but these are definitely very challenging classes, and they will kind of push you. But I guess don't be too discouraged, because it is definitely hard, and that transition can be hard. But it's definitely a lot of new skills, like learning how to learn. I think it's something that I hear a lot and that I talk a lot with colleagues and with professors. The question of pursuing a doctorate is definitely a lot more, I guess, development there. At least a lot of doctorates or grad students in engineering are pursuing research and are conducting research. You definitely have to have a very high interest level in what you do end up pursuing your doctorate in, because you're going to be spending a very, very, very large amount of time on a very specific question. So holding a PhD something is becoming essentially a world expert in a very niche, very specific research question. And you learn everything, almost everything that there is to learn about it. And you conduct years of research, trial and error, to try and accumulate some collection of data, of calculations to try and formulate some kind of response to this question. So, and that's not a kind of decision that comes very quickly. I guess it's after, for some people, working in various different labs, trying out different modes of research, different fields, different professors, and it's definitely something that's I guess fed by hopefully some amount of time of maybe pursuing undergrad research, spending some time in student clubs like this to try and figure out what you do want to kind of commit yourself to, especially with a PhD, an additional 4, 5, 6 years of graduate school as well. So very quickly, I don't want to get too behind in terms of the time. I'll kind of talk about basic timeline for the 4-year engineering undergrad degree. And this, I guess, for me at UW. So during my freshman year, coming to university in the US, not all of my IB credits did transfer. I was able to waive the chemistry, so that saved me, I guess, 2 chemistry courses, but I did have to retake calculus and physics. I think that was 3 courses each for those. However, that was a very useful review of those concepts, and I found it much easier the second time around taking those classes again, and it definitely helped to boost my GPA for I guess the rest of my undergrad. In addition, freshman year is very you do have some flexibility in what you take, so you can kind of branch out and try things that you normally wouldn't take. And some, at least for UW, they kind of want you to, they have some other requirements. You got to take a writing, a course that's heavy in writing to get some kind of writing credit. They also had a diversity credit. I ended up taking linguistics, astronomy, and there are also these seminars where you can kind of listen to professionals and professors talk about their research. So that's kind of the year 100 level classes. Sophomore year, the way that they had it then, you had to apply into the aerospace department. It has changed now. And if you're interested in the UW, I would definitely read a bit more into that, because, and this can also vary quite a lot between different universities of how when you first enter as a freshman, you're not always assigned to, I guess, the degree program or the department that you kind of intend to graduate with. Sometimes you might have to apply. Sometimes they do have a direct admission program. So definitely be aware of that. For me, I had to apply. I applied early at the end of my freshman year. Fortunately, I got in. And then you kind of get into more of the engineering fundamental classes, a lot more advanced math, multivariable calculus, things like that. I took a CAD class, so that's computer aided designing, so learning how to model parts using various software. Thermodynamics was another class. This is also when I began work for SART, and these are kind of your 200, 300 level classes. Junior year, that's when we really started getting into the proper aerospace classes. So topics like orbital mechanics, learning how to work in a lab environment, so all the different equipment and measurement techniques. There are a couple classes for that, how to write a proper lab report, how to report your results, how to criticize it, and things like that. Structures, aerodynamics. We spent some time testing models in the wind tunnel that we have in the department. So really getting into the kind of essentials of the specific degree that is aerospace engineering here. In SARP, I kind of graduated to leading a project. And so there's again that opportunity for gaining some leadership experience as well as the engineering experience. I also started a campus job. I worked front desk for the dorms in the mailroom. It was a nice way to earn some side income and also to kind of a nice break from the more technical side of the things that I was doing. I would say junior year was very busy, just in terms of balancing all of these commitments. Senior year, 400 level, I took my first plasma course. I guess our aerospace engineering degree at UW is unique in that it offers plasma course. Not all aerospace programs do that. First rocket propulsion class, heat transfer, systems engineering. But the main bulk of senior year, and this is probably pretty common for a lot of engineering programs around the States, is you begin work on a capstone project, and it can vary between one to 2 years in length. And you kind of get a chance to really begin and lead an engineering project of your own, from conception of whatever design it is that you're trying to apply. Or for us, in our case, it was designing and building a sounding rocket to launch for a competition. In addition, my senior year, I began my undergraduate research, which that opportunity did lead to me staying on in that lab. And that's when I decided that I'd like to continue work in that plasma's fusion lab. And that was the bulk of my master's research. And now I'm a full-time research assistant in the lab. And that's what I'm pursuing my PhD in. I guess another factor there is that as an international student in the US, the option of me trying to apply for an aerospace job in industry was very limited in the US, and I imagine in other countries as well. Aerospace companies are beholden to, I guess, restrictions with military contracts, and therefore a lot of companies can only hire US citizens or green card holders. So in my case, being a Malaysian citizen, I wasn't eligible to apply for a lot of industry jobs. So I thought about the things that I wanted to do in aerospace. My personal interests are in human space exploration, building the vehicles, the propulsion systems to kind of get us beyond the moon, so moving into deep space, and what kind of technologies do we need for that. The only way I could research that and learn about how we can actually do that and to make some kind of impact in that would be going into grad school. At least for now. Once you do have a PhD, things can change in terms of getting clearances and things like that. But for now, at least to me, the only way that I could learn about what I wanted to learn in the environment that I was in was to go to graduate school. How are we on time? Okay, so we're at just past the hour. This is just very quickly a sample screenshot of my schedule back in spring 2017. I think this is a junior year schedule. So I was taking 4 different classes here. And you can see I started my day at 9:30. Final class ended at about 1:20. So definitely not a full day of classes, but I guess the time it took to kind of process all that information, trying to answer a homework problem. There were sometimes projects as well. Kind of took up the rest of the day. Sometimes the afternoon. The afternoon I probably spent working for SARP, doing something with the rocket. And yeah, these are all 50 minutes classes as well. So that time passes pretty quickly too. And there's a lot of information covered in that time. So it was definitely an interesting time. I also want to briefly talk about living in Seattle. It is a beautiful city to live in, and the Pacific Northwest in general is also a very beautiful part of America to live in. I'm very much a hiker. This is Minotaur Lake, one of the more remote hikes that I've done. The bottom left, this is the view from one of my apartments on the rooftop on a very nice crisp autumn morning. I'm kind of selling Seattle a little short here because most of the time it doesn't look this clear and sunny. Most of the time it is gloomy and gray and rainy for the majority of the year, kind of going through that right now. Kind of starts late fall through March and April really, but when it does get to summer in the area, so I guess May onwards through to end of September, I'd say, it is absolutely gorgeous. Just clear blue skies, very long days. I don't think sometimes the sun doesn't set till 8:30, maybe 9 p.m. I think. So plenty of sunlight during that, plenty of time, opportunities to get outside. Although even year round, you kind of learn there. I mean, there are a variety of things to do even during the darker, shorter days. Personally, I continued to play soccer. So this is kind of my recreational team. We play in a local adult league, kind of on fields around the city. I also cycle a lot, and cycling culture is also huge in the area. There are plenty of trails and beautiful lakesides and hills to kind of explore on your bike. This was a 100-mile ride for a local cancer hospital last summer. So we had a kind of group, we formed a team, did some fundraising as well. So a lot of these kinds of opportunities to kind of branch out and be kind of a part of the community of the city as well, which I found very, very enjoyable and very valuable. Just life in general after high school, things I've learned along the way and things I'm definitely still learning about. On the kind of practical side in college, I'd say student benefits are everywhere, and this can range from discounts at stores to various perks, getting free passes to certain museums. So once you're in university, kind of be on the lookout for that, because it can get you, I guess, save you a lot of time, save you a lot of money, and kind of open up new places and opportunities perhaps that you might not have known about. Learning how to take public transport. Hopefully wherever you do end up has a decent public transport system, but of course not everyone can afford a car. Not many cities are very conducive to that either. So kind of being able to navigate the local public transport can be a very useful skill. I'd say building credit is also a good one, especially for those of you considering to settle down. I think that the 4 years spent in undergraduate is a good time to start learning how to kind of build these kind of monetary and financial skills as well. And I think there are plenty of kind of these starter student credit cards that can help you out with that. And having those years under your belt can definitely help further down the line. Things like living with roommates as well, kind of dealing with that kind of dynamic, learning how to be clean, how to do chores, kind of setting the schedules for yourself is also very important. And also taking advantage of, health insurance. I think kind of learning how that whole process works. And I think for a lot of the time that is included in the tuition that you do pay. And there are a lot of opportunities and benefits to take care of your physical as well as mental health that often don't go used, I'd say. So that's kind of money that's kind of just left on the table. In terms of kind of being social, as as you leave high school and as you kind of branch off into your, for me, grad school, and if for those who end up working in industry or working in jobs somewhere, maintaining friendships definitely takes effort. You're not always in that kind of classroom group or in high school kind of moving around to the same classrooms every day and in the same clubs. That's definitely a skill to be learned and an adjustment to make. I'd say following your interests definitely helps. Making time for your hobbies, joining clubs, even making friends at work can help to build these relationships. But also maybe like just being aware of finding comfort in solitude. I think I do spend more of my time by myself compared to in high school. It's just not coming home to family all the time, especially being, I guess, international. My family's in Malaysia. Just being able to find things that you like to do by yourself as well. But with that in mind, also being mindful of your mental health. The undergraduate experience can definitely be a very stressful one, and there are a lot of new challenges coming at you from different directions, different commitments, and it can definitely take its toll and add a lot of pressure. And I think it's important to be aware of that and to acknowledge it and to try and take steps to help with that. And in line with this, building a support group. It's going to be other students, older students, professors, family. So just having the people around you to kind of support you and just having someone to talk to can be really, really useful. In terms of career, kind of start thinking about your network. That could be, the people you spend your time with, the kind of connections that you make in and out of class, perhaps in a research lab or in these kind of student clubs as well. Potentially down the line might be your kind of link to a potential position in a company that you wanted, that might give you an advantage. But at the same time, it's this time after high school is very much a time in flux. A lot of things are changing and you're experiencing a lot of new things. And it's definitely okay to not know what you want to do as well. I think there's a lot of pressure for a lot of students to know, I want to do this and these are the things that I have lined up. But at the same time, college is a time for you to explore different interests that you might have. There are a lot of things that you just might not have been aware of in high school that come up in college, and that this is really the time to maybe try something different and see if that sticks, see if it's something that you like, and maybe it works out, and maybe that's something you end up doing for a good amount of your life. That being said, if you do have a plan, I personally did have a plan. I had a lot of steps detailed out, and that's great. But life happens. A lot of different things can change. New opportunities could come up. So kind of just be prepared for that change and to be able to adapt and just be open to whatever kind of comes your way. And lastly, I'll just leave my contact info here. There's a QR code for if you want to screenshot it or scan it, and if you want to drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to do so and answer any questions. There's a few more questions in the chat. I think we're right at 10 past, so I'm wondering if we're
I think some of the
short.
students have already have left and gone back to class, but cool. We are recording this session and we'll put it up on our YouTube channel, so awesome. They'll be able to check in and get the parts that they missed. Aqil, that was such a great talk. Thank you so much for making time today, giving us some insight into a field, I think, as you said, that's very niche, but a lot of people are curious about. And then also life in Seattle and some really valuable tips about just being a young adult and navigating that time from high school to undergrad and then to postgrad. So thank you so much for your time today. If the students have any questions, we'll be sure to share your contact information with them, and hopefully they can make some valuable connections, and we'll get some future UW students out there to join you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I think this is a really nice program to have as well.